Konbanwa listeners, welcome back to the show where we examine world events with the precision of a forensic accountant and the emotional maturity of two people trying to microwave popcorn at 3 a.m. It's just me today, your host, here to take your hand, look you straight in the eye and say, Hong Kong, what are you doing? Honestly, sometimes I feel like the city is a telenovela character. Every episode has flames, betrayal, corruption, and at least one villain wearing suspiciously nice shoes. So buckle up, pour some tea, maybe even spike it, because today's topic, oh, it's spicy miso ramen level hot, my friend.
So let's just start with a number, a really, really devastating number. This is from the massive fire that absolutely tore through the Wang Fu Court apartment complex in Taipo. The initial official death toll was 128, but more than 150 people were still missing. And unofficial estimates, they suggest the final number could be way, way higher, maybe even over 300.
Okay, so you see a number like that, and the first thing you think is, how? I mean, this wasn't just one building. The scene was described as something nobody had ever seen before. We're talking about seven separate towers, all burning at the same time, and this blaze just raged for over 40 hours. So yeah, the question is staring us right in the face. How is that even possible?
All right, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to peel it back layer by layer like a very tragic, very flammable onion. We're going to look at the fire itself, then this crazy expensive renovation that happened right before, the very serious allegations of foul play, what this all says about the system as a whole, and then, finally, the aftermath.
So first up, the Inferno in the city. Now, the official explanation for this catastrophe was, and I quote, a simple, unfortunate accident. Right, but for the people who actually lived in this 46-year-old housing estate, the story started way, way before any flames ever appeared.
And at the very center of that story is this thing called an owner's corporation. Now, on paper, it's a great idea. It's a body elected by the property owners themselves to manage public areas, maintenance, that kind of thing. It was set up back in the colonial era as this little democratic experiment in self-governance, supposed to be totally non-political. Keyword there, supposed to be.
And that brings us to the flashpoint for this whole disaster, a mandatory grand maintenance project. A massive renovation that, as it turns out, the residents didn't want, didn't ask for, and certainly didn't expect would come with a bonus feature, spontaneous building flambe.
So this owner's corporation, led by its chairman, Deng Guoquan, they rammed through this renovation project with an absolutely jaw-dropping price tag. We're talking 320 million Hong Kong dollars. That meant every single household was on the hook for up to $180,000. For a lot of these middle-class families, that is a life-changing amount of money. So you can imagine, this just ripped the community apart. A lot of residents started protesting, asking, hey, where's all this money going? Why is this so expensive? But anyone who refused to pay or asked too many questions got hit with threatening letters from lawyers. And this is where it gets really murky. The sources allege that this supposedly non-political owners corp got, well, real cozy with pro-Beijing political groups. One local councillor even started sending out these letters denouncing anyone who disagreed in a style that was described as having a cultural revolution tone. When residents tried to fight back and elect a new board, the project was just rushed through before they could.
Okay, so this is where things get really, really shady. When residents started asking why they were paying millions for a renovation, the whole investigation turned towards corruption and criminal wrongdoing. People started asking those uncomfortable questions like, hey, why did we pay millions for this? And wait a second, is this renovation project, a renovation project?
The main accusation here was something called bid rigging, and it's a pretty slick and totally corrupt process. Let me just walk you through how it allegedly works. So, a project gets announced. Then, a consultant who's secretly in bed with the preferred contractor finds excuses to disqualify most of the other bidders. Oh, you lack experience, that kind of thing. So now, you're left with just a small, cozy circle of companies who are all in on the scam. They all put in super high bids. The lowest bid from that circle gets picked, but it's still massively inflated. And then, they all split the profits. It's a classic scheme, and in this case, Hong Kong's anti-corruption agency has already arrested 5 people in connection with it.
And this slide right here gets to the absolute heart of the problem. It's all about the materials. See, what was promised was fire-retardant safety mesh. What they got was this flammable green mesh from a specific supplier in Shandong that apparently had the fire resistance of tissue paper in a flamethrower factory. They promised safe construction materials, they got traditional bamboo scaffolding and flammable foam. The promise was a safe, renovated building. The reality? It was a death trap just waiting for a spark.
So you see, this is way bigger than just one shady project. This single, horrific fire starts to reveal some really deep cracks in Hong Kong's entire system of governance, of accountability. It puts the whole system in question.
The source material really paints this picture of a system in decay. You can see it here. It draws this stark line between the past and the present. It suggests that institutions that were meant to prevent this exact kind of tragedy, from a tough, independent anti-corruption agency to those non-political community boards, have been slowly weakened, politicized. And what happens when that goes away? Accountability goes out the window, and public trust just evaporates.
And look, this wasn't some bolt from the blue. It didn't have to happen. For more than a year before the fire, residents were screaming from the rooftops about the dangerous materials being used. They filed complaint after complaint with multiple government departments. The Labor Department, the Housing Department, the Fire Services. They had documentation, they had samples, and they were basically ignored. In fact, in one letter that is just unbelievable now, the Labor Department actually wrote back and said the risk of a major fire was very low. All right, quick break. If you're enjoying this analysis of Hong Kong's "Oops, maybe the building wasn't supposed to explode" mystery, please hit subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends, tell your enemies too. Actually, especially your enemies. Nothing says "I think about you" like sending them an episode about political corruption. If you leave a 5-star review, I'll personally send you good luck and protection from shady renovation contractors. No guarantees, but emotionally, spiritually, I got you. Okay, so we're back. Let's talk about the aftermath. Because after a tragedy like this, you'd hope for answers, for accountability. But what happened next? Well, it only fueled more anger and suspicion that the system was more interested in protecting itself than the people it's supposed to serve.
Get this. While the towers were literally still burning, while the city was in shock, Beijing's Office for Hong Kong Affairs was already putting out statements praising the government's fast and effective response. At the same time, local officials started pointing fingers at the traditional bamboo scaffolding. Now, critics in the source see this as a pretty cynical move to shift the blame away from that flammable mesh and, maybe not coincidentally, help out some mainland steel suppliers.
So, in the middle of all this grief and anger, a university student named Miles does what you'd think is a pretty normal thing. He starts a simple online petition. It had 4 totally reasonable demands: an independent investigation, a review of safety rules, hold officials accountable, and compensate the victims. His reward for this? He was arrested.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The simple act of asking for an independent investigation, which used to be standard procedure for any big disaster in Hong Kong, is now being treated like some kind of subversive criminal act. According to the source, the official narrative that's being pushed is that anti-China forces are just using the disaster to create chaos. They're not just ignoring the questions, they're criminalizing the very act of asking. All right, that wraps up today's deep dive into the fiery saga of Tai Po. Proof that in Hong Kong these days, even your apartment building needs political asylum. Special thanks, as always, to our producer, FireflyHaku. He tried to renovate this episode 3 times, but don't worry, our scaffolding actually is fire retardant, or at least we think so. We bought it from someone who winked too much, so who knows? Thanks for listening, my friends. Take care, stay safe, and if someone offers you a special renovation deal, just run, like full Naruto run. See you next time.